Hey, welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the Marshall Experience. Tonight we're focused on fantasy, right? We're focused on fantasy. Fantasy is this time of year. We're going to start drafting. We're going to start doing the fantasy football things in this world, and we can't be more than excited, guys. Here at the Marshall Experience, we take confidence in our fantasy knowledge. So if you guys are really looking for the knowledge, make sure you guys are following and tuning in. And we do this every Tuesday. And once that season hits, we're going to be doing it every Tuesday and Thursday. So, again, appreciate everybody tuning in. Tonight we're going to be focused on what are called dead zones. Okay, and in particular, we're going to focus on the running back dead zones. For those that are unfamiliar with what the running back dead zone is, it was done by a couple guys about 4 to 5 years ago, and their work really showed that taking running backs between rounds 3 and 6 typically worked out really poorly for fantasy football teams. Okay, now tonight we're going to be talking about 10 to 15 running backs that are in this zone. And whether here at the Marshall Experience, we would take them to, target them, or if we're just going to let them pass us. Okay. And of course, we're going to give an explanation behind each one and give a little bit of numbers. So tonight's going to be a boring one if you don't like numbers. But if you don't like numbers, you don't like fantasy football. So again, there's about 15 running backs that is in this traditional dead zone. From rounds 3 to 6. Now, these are based off of their average draft position. So we had talked about this last week. Last week we had talked about the ADP, the average draft position, and this is their ranking of where they're going to be drafted. Okay. And again, there's some big names in here, guys. So we're going to avoid the obvious ones, the Bijans, the Gibbs, the Saquon Barkleys, right? We're not talking about those guys. Well, again, we're talking about round 3 to round 6, the guys that are going to be in that range. Okay. We're going to dive right into it. First guy that's probably one of the easier clicks in the zone, Josh Jacobs. Okay. Josh Jacobs last year averaged nearly 21 touches per game. He never saw fewer than 17 in a game after week 10's bye. Not only that, but the Packers passed the ball at the third lowest rate last year at 49%. I think even with Matthew Golden coming in, I think there's still plenty of workload for Jacobs in 2025. Plenty. I would target Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs would be a target for me. That is great value. Probably looking at a third round, considering, he's probably one of the more talented ones that we'll talk about today. But again, he's, we're talking about wide receivers, quarterbacks. There's going to be people other than just running backs, right? So we have to realize that Josh Jacobs could fall to that third round. I know a lot of people would say, well, he's not third round talent. Well, it depends on how your draft goes. Because, like I said, wide receivers, quarterbacks, a couple tight ends you might throw in there, depending on what league you're in. Okay. Again, I would target Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, I think, has a great year, a running back, top 10 year. Next guy we'll talk about today, Chase Brown. Okay. Why is Chase Brown in the dead zone? From week 9 onwards, so week 9 to week 18, Brown averaged nearly 21 points in PPR leagues on almost 24 touches per game. Okay. Now, perhaps Khalil Herbert or Zach Moss will eat into that volume slightly, but I think he's shown that he's an explosive enough player. He has the trust of the team. And look, guys, we as fantasy football players, we want people that can score a ton and can keep the pace up. Chase Brown falls under both of those. I could see Chase Brown having probably a running back 12 to 15. I think the value's there. The volume is definitely there, as it should be. Like I said, Zach Moss, Khalil Herbert, they could eat in a slight amount. I think the number one guy and the guy that you should trust is Chase Brown. Again, target. So we're starting to get into a couple of guys that are questionable for me, right? If the value's there, okay? And a lot of these names, you guys are going to, whoa, Marshall, chill out. Yeah, just listen. Kyren Williams for the Rams, okay? Big thing that I just want to throw out there. Them getting Davante Adams, and you're telling me that they're going to give the ball to Kyren Williams for the duration of 60 minutes? No. The Rams just became a pass-first offense. Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell still, Davante Adams, and you got a top 5 and top 7 quarterback. They're going to be a pass-first offense. I think Kyren Williams, honestly, for me, is one of the tougher clicks in this dead zone. He, for the second straight year, has another rookie to compete with. Okay, Jarquez Hunter. Look up the name if you don't know it. But the Rams are really high on Hunter. Okay, not only that, but now he has to compete with second-year Blake Corum. Okay, I'm not indicating that there's going to be an immediate workload, but it's not something that you cannot ignore as a fantasy football player. Williams averaged 81 yards per game in 2024, which ranked 4th. So again, the yards are there. He also fumbled the ball 3 times. Those are minus points, guys. Those are bad stats. And he ranked 35th in the juke rate among running backs. So he's not breaking much tackles. He's just taking his hits and taking his licks and going, right? Last year, people were writing off Williams. He did have a good season. I can agree. Again, finished as the top 10 running back 10. But a repeat is hard to predict. I'll say that for Saquon in his last year. A repeat is very hard to predict. And again, with them grabbing Davante Adams, having Puka Nacua, having a top 7 quarterback, I don't see them being – I don't see Kyren Williams still averaging that many touches in a game. The workload will die. Not because of Blake Corum or Hunter immediately, but I think it's because the team scheme is going to change. I think he'll be involved in a lot more play action. I don't think that he'll be involved a lot more in the game plan necessarily. So again, if the value's there, sure, he's going to be the goal line guy. He's going to be a touchdown machine. I just don't think that you're going to see a top 10 performance like you did last year. So again, not aggressively target, but if the value's there, I'm clicking it. Okay. Next, so our first fade. This is going to be interesting. Listen to this. James Cook for the Buffalo Bills. The Bills running back is currently heading towards a training camp contract standoff, guys. With this, we've seen this through many players. The Bills, they really spent this past offseason, as I've talked about in the past, they spent a lot of money on retaining their players. So it made me sit back and ask, why not James Cook? Is there something that we don't know? Cook last year led all players in touchdowns. But the last 2 seasons, he only scored 9 touchdowns in total. So, again, when we talked about last week was what? The Cuddy system. Consistency. Consistency is at C. Do we see him scoring 17 touchdowns again? Probably not, right? Probably not. Daniel, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. So for me, I'm fading. I can't do it. I think that you're not going to see that much production again. I don't necessarily think that they are. That he is as much of as a part of the game plan as he should be. You got Tyrone Johnson. You got a few running back, Ray Davis, right? I mean, Ray Davis is filled in nicely for James Cook last year. Very, very nicely. So who is to say they don't move on from James Cook? Maybe trade him to Dallas. Maybe move him to a running back needy team that didn't get one in the draft. It's possible because they have Ray Davis. I think that Ray Davis could be a starter in the league. He proved that last year when Cook went down. He constantly performed when he needed to. So again, I'm fading away from James Cook unless he falls below his average draft position. If you get a steal, I still do think he produces 9 to 10 touchdowns. I just don't see 17. So to expect what you're going to get off of last year, a lot of new fantasy football players, they'll go off of what was produced last year because, well, that's what he just did it. It's not necessarily how it works all the time. Again, when using the Cuddy system, there is a consistency, right? We have to look at consistency, guys. One other name I'll talk about, Omarion Hampton, right? One of the rookies. This is a difficult click for me. It really is. There's no denying that he's a fun player. He's in a fun situation with the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert. I get it. The gap between Najee Harris's ADP and his ADP is larger than it should be. It's like 66 spots. Okay. Rookies tend to grow, minus Aston Genty, obviously, when you're drafted that high, or a Bijan or a Saquon, you know what I mean? Like these guys are day one, you impact players, right? Omarion Hampton is not going to be day one taking the job. I'm the guy. They got Najee Harris. They signed Najee Harris to a one-year deal. They're going to be a dual back system. Just is what it is. But as a fantasy football player, you have to, in redraft leagues, you have to realize, well, maybe I shouldn't take a stab on this guy that's only going to see 50% of the snaps. He's probably not going to produce as many points as the guy that's playing 75, 80% of the snaps, right? My point is that Najee Harris is going to eat into Omarion Hampton this year. Next year, we could be having a different story. As of this year, Omarion Hampton is, in my personal opinion, a goal line merch. He is, if he's going to get you touchdowns, it is going to be on the goal line situation. And at that point, it's a costly click because you're relying on touchdowns every week. You want to rely on the touches, the carries, the yards, the catches, right? If we're relying on touchdowns, we might have a really rough fantasy year. So again, not aggressively pursuing. I'm more towards the fade side just because of the production. I think it will be there, but I don't think he has a Brock Bowers rookie year. I don't think he has a Puka Nacua rookie year. I don't think, you know what I mean? He's not going to be that impactful because Najee Harris is there. Next guy, we're going to talk about Breece Hall. Breece Hall for the Jets. When Aaron Glenn took over the head coaching position, he talked about mixing in more of a committee approach at running back. It's not really surprising to me, considering he came from Detroit, where they used David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, right? They use these running back committees. Even Craig Reynolds, they threw in there a few times. Aaron Glenn is coming from a system. Yes, he was the defensive coordinator, but it's still a system to where you saw how it worked and that it worked. Why would he not want to implement that? You do have two great running backs, Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. I think they would. I wish last year they would use Braylon Allen just that little bit more. I think he's talented. Breece Hall for me, I'm not really sold. This guy has yet to run for 1,000 yards in a season, despite playing 16 games each of the last 2 seasons. Last few months, there's been trade rumors. You don't know where he's going. So, it's kind of hopeful. Maybe he goes to a Dallas or, somewhere that is just a running back away from being a contender. And again, not aggressively, but if he falls to me in that value, I would draft a Breece Hall for sure. Next guy we'll talk about, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard, I will start off as a very good target for me. Last year, Chuba Hubbard had 8 top 12 weekly finishes and scored over 20 points on 6. Scored over 20 points on 6 occasions, making him one of the best value picks in 2024. His ADP last year, guys, was 137. In 12-man leagues, that's round 11, 12. And this guy was scoring in the top 12. You know what I mean? Hubbard is going to be an absolute monster this year. They got Bryce Young, the wide receiver that he needs, that physical top guy wide receiver. That is also, believe it or not, that's going to help Chuba Hubbard. I mean, that is going to take the load off the guy. Jonathan Brooks goes down. He can't produce this year. He's already on the PUP list. It's Chuba Hubbard's game, guys. This is Chuba Hubbard's offense, and Bryce Young is going to have to rely on him a lot this year if they're going to want to succeed, because it's going to open up the play action. It's going to open up him and Tet and Adam Thielen. You know what I mean? It's going to open this whole offense up. I'm thinking the Panthers might be a little scary this year, and I'm going to be honest about that. Hubbard's ADP this year is almost 80 points higher. So now it becomes more of a conversation, right? Again, Panthers, solid offensive line. They get Tet McMillan. I think it could be seen as a negative, but I think it benefits Hubbard. I do. I think it benefits the offense as a whole. I'm targeting Chuba Hubbard this year for sure. Next guy we're talking about, Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker the third. I'm not necessarily aggressively pursuing. I'm not aggressively pursuing Kenneth Walker because I have worries about how Zach Charbonnet has affected his ADP this year. Charbonnet averages 111 scrimmage yards, in the 4 games that he saw 18 plus touches. I mean, that's 5 yards a touch. That's production. That's moving the ball forward. And it's great for fantasy. Right? But as a coach, if you know that this player, every time he touches the ball, is moving that ball 5 to 6 yards, I mean, that's beneficial for sure. Right? I think that Zach Charbonnet could be more of a spotlight player this year for the Seattle Seahawks, especially with Sam Darnold. Walker's a good player. It's a change of offensive coordinator. They moved on from DK. I think that Sam Darnold is just going to sling it. I think he's just going to – I don't know what Seattle's plan is, but I just don't see Kenneth Walker being a part of it. That he's another one like Breece Hall that was thrown into trade rumors because they have that reliable back to produce, that has produced, like James Cook and Ray Davis situation, right? The backups have produced in their absence. Something teams look at. What can we get for this player? Should we extend them? Are they on a contract year? These are things that teams look at, guys. It just is. Again, I'm not aggressively pursuing Walker, but I'm not ignoring him. The talent is definitely there. Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon for Houston. The Texans did very well, I guess I should say very little. The Texans did very little to make us concerned for Joe Mixon's workload when it comes to the backfield. But my concern is the change to the offensive line. Again, these are things that we look at, guys. As fantasy football players, we have to literally open this up and paint a bigger picture. It's not just about the talent sometimes. It's not about the cool name, the cool hair. What's an offensive line look like? Are they a pass first team? Are they a run first team? What is the consistency of the player? Like, there's so many different variables that we have to look at. And offensive line is a big one, right? And that's definitely a concern for me with the Houston Texans in this next year. Their offensive line ranked 29th in PFF grades in 2024. Then they get rid of Larry Tunsil. Maybe Joe Mixon overcomes adversity and gets involved in like the passing game more to produce those fantasy points, but I'm not relying on that. And that's just not a great recipe for success. So I'm going to say approach with caution. Approach with caution when it comes to Joe Mixon. Again, the talent is there. Do not let that fool you. What surrounds the player, if it's bad news, we'll probably look somewhere else and get a surefire or a better option. Next guy we'll talk about, David Montgomery, Detroit running back. Splits with Jahmyr Gibbs, right? The Lions lost, obviously, David Montgomery last 3 weeks last season. He made it back for their only playoff game, right? He saw 7 touches compared to Gibbs' 14. After he got hurt, it really was the Gibbs' show. Whether that trend continues in 2025 is hard to say. I think the Lions love Montgomery, but again, change of offensive coordinator, right? These things matter, okay? We don't know if it was a Ben Johnson thing. Maybe Ben Johnson liked the dual backfield. Do I think they ignore it? Do they think they bench David Montgomery? Absolutely not. But if you think that the Lions are going to absolutely cut Gibbs's workload in half or any bit at all, you're crazy. Gibbs is a top 3 back in the league. You know what I mean? He's going to see 75% of the touches, or he should. Where does that leave Montgomery? Goal line situation, third down situation, third down and short, right? These things matter. Just something to approach. Again, approach with caution. Approach with caution. We'll talk about another rookie here, Trayvon Henderson for New England. I think that Mike Vrabel kind of saw Henderson is the type of back he wants to build around. I think Mike Vrabel getting the job at New England, he's able to go get his guy. He's able to go get his running back. I think that Ramondre Stevenson also becomes a big part of this backfield. I think that Drake May needs not necessarily all the help he can get, because I like Drake May. I like the talent of Drake May, but he's a young quarterback. Outside of Stephon Diggs, they don't have a lot of wide receiver help. A couple rookies, right? A couple young guys. Stephon Diggs is clearly the number one. But give May some help, right? I think a Stevenson Henderson backfield could do that. I think the only way that I see Henderson completely taking over would be is if Stevenson's fumbling problems continue from last year. The guy almost had double-digit fumbles, and it was bad at the end of the year. Again, guys, we lose points for this in most leagues. Okay, some leagues don't have penalties, but that's crazy to me. With Trayvon Henderson being young as he is, target. I wouldn't say aggressively because of that split backfield, but I would take Henderson over Stevenson for sure. Next guy we can talk about is Alvin Kamara, and this hurts my heart. I just traded away Alvin Kamara and Keandre Miller in my top league, and got Geno Smith and some picks out of it. But Alvin Kamara is coming to that point, right? The Saints are bad. We don't know what their quarterback situation is. Derek Carr retires. They draft Tyler Show. They got Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener. I mean, it's the last year's Raiders all over again. It's like a quarterback carousel. We don't know who's going to start, right? This will be Alvin Kamara's ninth season in the NFL, right? He has yet to hit 1,000 yards rushing in any of them. Not in 9 seasons. Awful offensive line. Brand new head coach. Who knows what they look like at quarterback. And Keandre Miller, he's young. He's earning more touches last season. It's hard to get excited about Kamara or really anybody in the Saints offense. So, for me, Kamara is an absolute fade. I just can't see him producing any fantasy relevancy on that poor of a team. RJ Harvey, rookie from UCF, goes to Denver. His ADP is 55, 49.9. Sorry, 54.9. That does feel a little expensive. I think for me personally, RJ Harvey was a surprise selection at pick number 60, ahead of some backs that went after him. It's hard. It's hard for me to trust the Broncos situation. Just last year, for the last few years, it's been a messy committee in Denver, a messy running back committee, and but Sean Payton has talked about wanting a 2-back system in the offense for a while. Okay. Nobody was effective in this backfield last year. Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin. I think they both can take valuable carries away from RJ Harvey. So it could be tricky for him to pay off for an expensive cost. Okay. Approach with caution. This guy not only has 1 to deal with, but 2 to deal with. So I think that ADP is a little high, a little rich for my blood. So at that ADP, I'm just gonna approach with caution. If he falls, maybe. I think he will be a lead back eventually. But again, as we touched on Marion Hampton, these rookies, they build up. They don't just, if your name's not Saquon, Gibbs, you know what I mean, like Bijan, you're not day one impact players. You're going to build up year 1 and then year 2 like a Chase Brown. Look at him now. Boom, starter. Took over for Joe Mixon. Those are the type of players that, right? Those are the type of players that we kind of see. Next player we're talking about, James Conner. James Conner. 2nd consecutive 1,000-yard season. Just signed an extension with the Cardinals. Conner has had at least 8 touchdowns in the last 8 and each of the last 3 seasons, and has consistently, there's that word, consistently been valuable for fantasy football. Trey Benson did show just a little bit his rookie year, but Conner's got control of this backfield. You can't tell me otherwise. Just the numbers he's, again, consistently put up. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's like arguing with a wall. You can't tell me otherwise. So, target for me for James Conner. Junkins for Cleveland. Selected him with the 36th overall pick. They re-signed Jerome Ford and also selected Dylan Sampson. I'm going to say here, I like the talent. Again, in redraft leagues, when you draft every year, I'm going to say avoid. This is the reason why. A, the offense could be problematic. Issues at quarterback. An in-progress offensive line, which adds to the worry of a committee approach, right, of all three. So let's pump the brakes. I understand the pick. I understand the talent. I get it. But again, if we're looking to win fantasy football, got to trust the Marshall experience. Got to trust it. Again, approach with caution. Aaron Jones from Minnesota. The biggest concern for me with Aaron Jones is his health and Jordan Mason getting added to the backfield. Jones has played 17 games in 2 of the last 3 seasons, but he consistently, what's that word, seems to get banged up and miss drives during the game. If you've ever watched Green Bay or Minnesota football, you know what I'm talking about. He'll go out a drive or 2 here. You know what I mean? I get it. You're playing, but you're only playing 60% of the game. Right? He's only hit the 20-touch mark only twice in his last 5 games in 2024. So, again, he's just not in there to get the touches. I think that Mason will thrive in that scheme. I think that they will rely on their run game, especially with J.J. McCarthy, taking that pressure off of him and J.J. and Jordan Addison. I think that Jordan Mason could compete with Aaron Jones. I really just dig into his workload. I really do. So I would avoid Aaron Jones altogether. Tony Pollard is going to be our next one. If Cam Ward can be competent, then this whole Titans offense could take a step forward in 2025. 27th ranked last year in points scored per game and 23rd in plays per game. Okay, so just the pace of the game isn't there, and they're obviously not scoring. Okay? The Titans have talked about wanting to work in Tyjae Spears a little bit more, but it's clearly obvious to me that Tony Pollard is the top dog in this offense. Okay? 4.3 yards per carry. Spears 3.7. He also boosted a 5.4 big run rate, which is 10 plus yards, right? 10 plus yards is considered a big run. Compared to 2.3 for Spears. Plus, well, easy enough, he produced over 700 more yards. So Pollard, to me, is clearly the top guy. Don't even pay attention to Tyjae Spears. Yes, he's going to eat into a little bit of time, but if you go look at his numbers from last year, I could expect about the same, if not less. So with Tony Pollard, I would target, but not too aggressive. I think there's better options out there, as we've talked about. But, I think if the value's there, it's definitely there with Pollard. Caleb Johnson got drafted by Pittsburgh. I don't necessarily think that Johnson's a perfect back. But I think that he has the size that typically Arthur Smith would prefer in his offense. While Jaylen Warren is a fun player, well, we've also really never seen him control a backfield. And that's legitimate, right? We've never seen him. It's always been him and Najee Harris. So we've never really seen him control a backfield. So now I don't think that's really ever going to happen now with Caleb Johnson. I think that Johnson will immediately have a solid role in this offense. Not sure who the day one starter is. I could maybe see Jaylen Warren being the day one starter. But again, rookies work into their role, guys. They work into their role. Year one, right? They're probably about week 12 or 13. If they're going to start in year two, they're going to be starting in week 12 or 13. It's just a process. They have to learn the playbook. They have to learn the offense. They have to learn the audibles. They have to feed and work themselves into this. It takes time. So that's when you draft rookies, you have to understand that these guys could be on your bench until later in the season. So in redraft leagues, rookies are tough to draft because, again, you wait so long for them to produce, if they produce that first year. So for me, I'm going to say target on Caleb Johnson. I'm going to say target on Caleb Johnson just because of the workload that I think he will get in Pittsburgh. Next guy we're going to talk about, and the last guy that we're going to talk about, is DeAndre Swift, Chicago running back. The number one thing I liked is that Chicago didn't draft a running back. I think that there was maybe a few that they were after, but I think a few didn't fall, and then they took Luther Burden, and I think they went a different route. But I think that them not drafting one really put Ben Johnson's trust in DeAndre Swift, which is funny because I heard that they don't have the best relationships from their days in Detroit, but maybe that's all beside them, and they're ready to win in Chicago. I think that the only threat to DeAndre Swift is Roschon Johnson, but I think that they are two completely different backs. DeAndre Swift is that change of pace back, and Roschon Johnson is the goal line power back. It's hard to fade Swift entirely when he has a prime role in the offense, but it's hard to ignore how Swift's career really hasn't panned out with teams never seeming to be in love with him, right? Detroit, he was the guy. There was only one running back, right? When he came to Philadelphia, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, right? There was other guys. Now he's in Chicago, Roschon Johnson. I just don't think that he's ever excelled in a dual back system. It's always he has to be the guy and get that many touches in a year, and you're just not going to. He's just past that point in his career. So with me, DeAndre Swift, I would approach with caution. That is just me personally, and excited to see what the Chicago offense can do this year. But guys, I appreciate you tuning in. That was a great episode. Again, about the running back dead zone. Go play back the episode if you want to know what I'm talking about. Rounds 3 to 6, these players are going to fall here. And should we take them or should we not? Again, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate you guys in the comments. Here at the Marshall Experience, we appreciate you. And guys, go check out the Sports Lounge Media. That's who we're powered by here at the Marshall Experience, and couldn't ask for a better group of guys and girls to experience that with. And big things happen over there at Sports Lounge Media. Go check us out on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all the good handles, and our sponsors, the Mogul brand, as well. Appreciate you guys. That's about it for tonight, guys. I appreciate you, everybody, and we will be back next Tuesday.